What's up, Street Talks? Eric from the Eric from Street Photography blog. So today I wanted to give you a quick lesson on capturing silhouettes. So first of all, one of the best ways to study silhouettes is to look a lot of film noir. For your convenience, I have selected some of my personal favorite film noir images. And the great thing about looking at film noir photos is that when you're looking at film noir images, you're drawing from about 5-6 decades of amazing images. So let's see, which one are my favorite ones? Okay, so I'm just going to kind of quickly flip through some of these photos, some of them from Citizen Kane, The Third Man. Just kind of notice how having some of these silhouettes adds depth, open-ended storytelling, drama, intrigue. Of course, there's a bunch of examples here, leading lines and such, low angles, Dutch angles. I'll cover these all things in a future lesson. But you could see with these wonderful leading lines here, example in The Third Man, it just kind of adds a sense of mystery and storytelling. One of my favorite images. Strong leading lines here. Dutch angle. And I wanted to illustrate this lesson with some of my photos as well. So this is a photograph that I shot when I was just kind of hanging out at a restaurant, or no, a cafe here in Hanoi. And so from the corner of my eye, I see this woman entering and closing this door. And so I had my camera out, high contrast black and white. That's also another good way to pre-visualize the world in terms of capturing silhouettes, is to set your camera to high contrast black and white mode. I recommend using an LCD screen or an EVF preview to capture it. And so I took a bunch of images, and about this one, I think the cherry on top, the small detail, is her hand on the left side of the door. But ultimately, one technique I have to better determine whether I have good silhouettes or not is to apply a Gaussian blur in Photoshop. And of course, since you guys are probably curious how to do that, I'll open up Photoshop. And the way you apply Gaussian blur is, just kind of load up a JPEG image. So this image here, cool. So load that up and go under Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you can just kind of drag this slider here however much you want. I think here I've done it about like 25 pixels. And you could see that now that I've kind of blurred it out, you could still kind of see the outline of this woman's face. And I think what's also really critical when you're capturing silhouettes is that you have, once again, this strong outline around her head. Also, what I love about the photograph is a lot of this negative black space here, which adds more drama and more mood to this image. So you could kind of see, for your convenience, I've kind of drawn out these little diagrams. Also, another detail I like in terms of the composition is this little starburst in the background. Drawn out here. Another photograph that I shot that I really love is this portrait of Cindy. So I saw these nice leading lines and I just asked her to turn sideways. And I kind of like, you could see the sideways silhouette of her head. And I think what's really critical in this image is the white space around her head. So if this is, once you blur it out with a Gaussian blur, you could still see there's good separation between her head and the background. And the white space is really important because if her head was overlapping with the black space on the left or the right, everything would just become one blur. So with the red lines, you could see there's good white space around the frame. Zoomed up. Another classic photo that I shot, I think I shot this 2009, 2011. Anyways, I'm out shooting downtown LA near the Opera House with Cindy. She spots out this scene. And I'm photographing this couple having some sort of conversation. And the moment the man lifts up his hands, that's when I clicked. And what I love about the shot is the drama of his hands. And also notice that you could see a good separation between the subject and the man. And you could see that little bit of white space in between them is very critical. Even when the image is blurred out, you can still see a good separation between them too. Zoomed in. Another photograph I shot recently here in Hanoi. What I love about this photo is, once again, the silhouette adds a sense of drama, anonymity, and the thing I like about silhouettes is that it makes the subject seem that they could be anybody. And this invites the viewer to make up his or her own story about the frame. So once again, with the Gaussian blur applied, you can still see there's good separation between the subject's head and the top of the frame. and outlined here in blue is the critical negative space. Another photograph I shot in Tokyo. So this photograph I shot high contrast black and white mode. And another good way you could create silhouettes in your images is just to darken the faces of your subjects. And I'll just kind of show you guys how to do that real quick. So let's see. I mean, these are all already silhouetted. I'll kind of look through some of my images. Let's see. Which one would be a good candidate? I think these are all actually silhouetted images. Okay, this might be a good candidate. This photograph of this man I shot here in Tokyo. So if I wanted to darken his face, you could either do this in Photoshop or Lightroom. Personally, I recommend using Lightroom because the adjustment brush, which allows you to brighten or darken certain parts of the frame, has a lot more fidelity, which means you have a lot more control on whether to, how dark or how bright to make it. So I'm just gonna import this photograph as an example. And the way you could access this is the hotkey E to enlarge the photo, the hotkey D to go under develop mode. And you could either click this adjustment brush here on the top right side, or you could press the hotkey K to access this brush here. And you could use the left or right bracket keys to enlarge or make this smaller. So I could essentially just paint in this area here, and then afterwards you could adjust the exposure to either brighten his face or darken the face. Even if you want to make it darker, you could slide the blacks all the way to the left. And so you could see now his face is darkened. Of course, this is a very quick and sloppy job, but you could see the ultimate effect that it did on this image that I shot a while back. Once again, blurred out. Strong leading lines here. And this is another photograph I shot of Cindy. You can see what's really critical is I'm photographing her underneath this windmill. And because there's a little bit of white space around her head, the silhouette is strong. Even when blurred out, you see good separation between her and the subjects in the background. And a lot of people are curious, how do you add these dramatic black and white images and silhouettes? And I'll just kind of show you guys a quick run through of how I might do this. So you guys can't see it, but I just plugged in my SD card. Open up Lightroom. I press G to go back to gallery view, Shift tab to open these tabs again. And essentially I just click import. And so I'm shooting all these photos in RAW on my Ricoh GR version 2. And I have everything set default, except the only thing that I have different is here under apply during import, you could click develop settings, click none, and you could create a bunch of different user presets and apply a preset while you import your image. So I've made a bunch of different presets, and I have my beloved monochrome 1600 preset, which I use to all the Ricoh GR files, GR2 files. I think it should work well on any raw images on any camera, but I've specifically optimized it on my Ricoh GR2 to make it look as dramatic as possible. So I'll just click this here, AirCam monochrome 1600, and it's still trying to figure out what to import or not. So just to speed this up, I'm just going to uncheck everything, scroll all the way to the bottom because I kind of know already what my recent photos are. This is taking a while to load, but I'll just press Shift, left click. I'll just import some random photos just to show you guys how to do it. And click import. So now it's importing the images. And one hotkey I like to do in Lightroom to get a better sense of what things look like is press Shift and Tab. The benefit of pressing Shift and Tab is you could kind of collapse the sidebars, which is very useful, especially if you're working on a laptop. And if you want to capture better silhouettes, not only do I recommend shooting high contrast black and white mode, but just make sure that the light source is coming from behind the subject. This is a strong way you could create silhouettes. And also another way you could create a silhouette is by using a flash. So generally what the flash does is using the flash makes the subject in the foreground a lot brighter and makes everything in the background a little bit darker. And so like this photograph, it's not the best example, but a photo of a dog that I shot. So you could see the dog is pretty well lit and the background is a little bit darker. So if you want to make more dramatic black and white photos, So you can see it's loading right now, which is applying this automatic AirCam monochrome 1600 preset. And if you just want to make the background darker, just kind of lower the exposure. Play with that. This is obviously not a silhouette, so this is not the best example. But generally, when it comes to capturing silhouettes, just make sure that the light source is behind the subject. So like in this photograph. And if you have a good image in terms of dramatic light and silhouette, what I generally recommend doing is go here under the develop module, press D for develop. And the only things that I really screw around with is dragging around the black slider. So you can see by default, it's kind of something like this. So you can still see some detail here on the left side and the right side of the frame. But if you want to make this silhouette a little more dramatic, you just drag the blacks all the way to the left to make a super epic silhouette. A lot of photographers don't like this technique. They call it crushing the blacks. So you take the blacks and you crush it 100% minus. Or what I like to do is put my contrast to 100%. You could also drag around these highlight sliders as well as the shadow sliders to have a certain look. And honestly, at this point, I don't really care about photography. It's just, it's about visual storytelling. It's about making images which make me happy. And so once I have the image I like, I press G to go back to gallery view, Shift tab to drop down the tabs again. I'll click export. And once I have an image I like, I'll usually just choose a folder. So I currently have Hanoi version 27. And then, you could rename it to whatever you want. I usually have my JPEG image to about 80%, which is pretty much the maximum image quality without having ridiculously big files. And I usually just keep sharpen on. I don't know why I did this. And I just click export. And then it's exporting the image. And under my images, so you can see it's being synced in Dropbox right now. And this is how I usually keep my images managed. And something you guys might be interested in, and I'm just kind of going randomly, is I have all my different folders in different version numbers. So I've been in Hanoi for a while, so I'm up to version 27. And what I'll do is, while I'm adding new version numbers, either I'll copy over old photos to the newer folders, or I'll just dump in brand new photos to a certain location. So you could also see this selection of images here that I've been shooting here in Hanoi lately. Kind of shooting more abstract photos. And often what I'll often do is extract a bunch of different JPEG images because I'm not quite sure which one that I like. And then I'll just kind of let the photos sit and marinate for long periods of time. Also another nice silhouette that I shot of Cindy. One tip that I like to do is shoot with the Ricoh GR2 in P or program mode and set the exposure compensation to -1 or -2 to achieve these dark silhouettes to add more dramatic effects to the photos. So anyways, yeah, those are some tips I have about shooting silhouettes. Some other examples of some silhouette photos, hopefully to inspire you. And of course, these are my photos. All right, now just kind of scroll through them. So you could see this is a photograph that I shot in Tokyo. Shot it from a very low angle on the Ricoh GR version 2. Shot it with a flash, macroed on his foot. So the foot essentially ate all the flash and the background subject is silhouetted. Another photograph, here I actually didn't darken his face, it just high contrast mode, just rendered it that way. This photograph I shot at the beach. I think I used this in P mode, ISO 1600 -1 or -2 exposure compensation. I don't remember. Another photograph I shot some crosses, -1, -2 exposure compensation. Sometimes shooting the fog adds this nice dramatic feel. Another photograph, -1, -2 exposure compensation, shot from a very low angle. Same thing. All right. So, anyways, yeah. So to sum up, my recommendations for trying to shoot some more silhouette photos. First of all, switch your camera to black and white high contrast mode. Every camera is a little bit different. I'd rather recommend shooting either RAW or RAW plus JPEG, whichever works best for your camera. Also try to experiment with the -1 or -2 exposure compensation in program P mode, and that will kind of help you predetermine what the light's going to look like in your photographs. And even whenever possible, experiment using a flash, so you could have your subject stick their hand out really close to your face, use a flash, and usually it'll darken their faces. But essentially it's just to explore, have fun. The films I recommend watching include, and this is also a good way to find inspiration, just Google like Citizen Kane composition or something. And you could go to Google Images, and you can see all these really wonderful compositions in his images, or The Third Man composition. Another great film that I love, film noir. And yeah, so until then, if you want to learn more, just Google Eric Kim composition. Go to the blog, composition lessons. There's obviously a lot of stuff on the Googles. And I'm starting to compile everything that I learned about composition here on the blog for your benefit. All right, until next time, guys, peace out.